आइए क्विकली आपको फिक्की आईबीए के सालाना फ्लैगशिप इवेंट #FICCI में ले चलते हैं, जहां पर आरबीआई गवर्नर शक्तिकांता दास जी का संबोधन हो रहा है। आइए उनको सुनते हैं।
All of you. I'm indeed thankful to FICCI and IBA for once again inviting me to participate in this FIVAC conference. This is the third event I am participating. The first one was in 2019, then again last year, and now. As momentous changes are taking place in the financial and business landscape, events like this provide us an opportunity to industry leaders, bankers, and policymakers to deliberate on issues of our times and crystallize our thoughts for future guidance. Today, the world is grappling with an unrelenting and unending string of challenges since 2020. Geopolitical conflicts, geoeconomic fragmentations, volatile commodity prices, uncertainty in trajectory of monetary policies and their macro-financial implications, increasing frequency and ferocity of climate shocks, all these prevailing together present a very complicated and, should I say, deadly mix of challenges. And these challenges are not just for policymakers, but for every player who's there in the business world, every player who is there in the industry world, every player who is there in the financial sector. Historical regularities are looking improbable and policymakers are being put to test. In this backdrop, the theme of today's conference, Winning in Uncertain Times, aptly captures the long-standing quest of humanity to make progress against all odds and challenges. I am an optimistic and I remain confident that we can work together and navigate through this stormy weather. In tune with the theme of the conference, I would like to touch upon the Reserve Bank's policies and actions in the last 1.5 years in particular to maintain macroeconomic stability. I would then proceed to talk about India's growth drivers and emerging opportunities that can be harnessed to enhance India's potential growth. In the end, I propose to highlight certain key issues which merit attention of banks, NBFCs, financial sector entities, and even businesses. The monetary policy actions of the Reserve Bank over the last 1.5 years, consisting of prioritization of inflation ahead of growth, and as you would recall, we did it in May 2022, or rather April 2022, we did it. That is prioritization of inflation ahead of growth, narrowing the liquidity adjustment facility corridor, increasing the policy repo rate by 250 basis points cumulatively starting May 2022 till now, draining out excess liquidity, together with certain supply-side measures undertaken by the government, have facilitated significant softening of headline inflation to 4.9% in October 2023. The moderation in core inflation in particular is noteworthy. There is also recent evidence of household inflation expectations becoming more anchored. Headline inflation, however, remains vulnerable to recurring and overlapping food price shocks coming from global factors and local adverse weather events. The frequency and intensity of such shocks have increased in the recent period. Monetary policy in such a scenario needs to remain watchful and actively disinflationary while supporting growth. I must add that our actions over the past 1.5 years did not engender any financial stability risks as witnessed in some advanced economies in the early part of 2023. This may be attributed to the regulatory requirements prescribed by the Reserve Bank, which banks are expected to follow to manage their interest rate risk. These requirements act as safeguards for future stress that may arise when the upturn of the interest rate cycle takes place. So if you recall, what happened in particular, let us say in the United States. I mean, from whatever I see from this distance, and this is something which is known to perhaps most of you, but just to explain what I was trying to say is that, a very interest rate increase of very high order in quick succession led to a situation where the banks and the other lending institutions came under stress. I don't blame the Fed for it. The US Fed was probably doing its job because they had to bring down inflation. High inflation is a challenge, is I think a complete no in the US economy. So Fed was completely focused on inflation. But the financial institutions and the banks, perhaps they had not adequately factored for the change in the cycle, for the cycle to turn down. That is, perhaps there was a belief that this low for long interest rates remaining low for long will continue to remain long and perhaps will continue to remain so till eternity. Now that's a fundamentally wrong assumption. So therefore, whenever interest rates are low or any situation, I think one has to always prepare one has to always keep his balance sheet so resilient that it's able to withstand the shocks which may originate when the cycle turns. So I think perhaps that is something which happened, and a lot of literature is already written on this. There will be more research as to what happened in the United States banking sector. But so far as the Reserve Bank is concerned, we are fully mindful of such possibilities because we have seen them in the past. And having seen them in the past, the Reserve Bank, as the bankers who are present here, they would very well know. We have, for example, we have prescribed capital and liquidity requirements, and we have made them uniformly applicable to all scheduled commercial banks, irrespective of their asset size and exposure. I'm talking about scheduled commercial banks. We have also investment fluctuation reserves requirement, which the banks and which the banks are expected to create, and they have created. We have also introduced valuation guidelines valuation guidelines on available for sale category of investments, and which are pretty stringent. And our approach has been fairly conservative in this regard.
तो फिक्की आईबीए के जो फ्लैगशिप इवेंट है फाइबैक 23, इसमें कुछ महत्वपूर्ण पॉइंट्स यहां पर आरबीआई गवर्नर साहब ने रेस किए हैं। क्लियरली कहा है कि दुनिया भर में चुनौती है, फाइनेंशियल लैंडस्केप में बहुत बड़े बदलाव आए हैं, लेकिन आरबीआई पूरा सक्रिय है, अपनी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी को लेकर वॉचफुल है और डिसइंफ्लेशनरी व्यू लेकर ही यहां पर चल रहे हैं। बहुत सारी बातें उन्होंने कही हैं, आपको लगा